Bible Worm, reading the Bible with Bible Worm.
Welcome to Bible Worm, getting to the core of the biblical text. I'm Dr. Robert Williamson, professor of religious studies at Hendrix College and theologian in residence of Canvas Community in Little Rock, Arkansas.
And I'm Dr. Amy Robertson, Director of Lifelong Learning and Music at Congregation Or Hadash in Sandy Springs, Georgia. We're here every week to discuss the biblical text, both as biblical scholars and as people of faith, one Jewish, one Christian.
This week, we're reading the stories of Jesus' transformation on the mountaintop and the disciples' failed attempt to heal a possessed boy, as told in Luke 9:28-45. We discuss the significance of Jesus' transfiguration and the importance of the command from the heavenly voice, listen to him. We talk about the appearance of Moses and Elijah and the coming exodus that Jesus will undergo in Jerusalem through his crucifixion and resurrection. And we wrestle with the urgency Jesus must feel, knowing that the end of his life is near and his frustration at the disciples' inability to exercise the power he has given them. We wonder what power has been given to us and whether we too might be able to cast out the demons that surround us, if only we could learn to believe. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Amy, it's Bible Worm time.
Hello, Bobby. How are ya?
I'm pretty good. We have one of these texts this week that I always like to read with you just because it's the one you always refer to as a Tide commercial.
It is a Tide commercial. If there has ever been a Tide commercial in the Bible, this is the Tide commercial.
This is the one, the gleaming white clothes of Jesus, as though they had been washed in some, I can't think of a fancy Tide. Do you know any fancy Tides? I
feel like OxyClean is like the new Tide.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't sound as good, though. It's not like an OxyClean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like pillowy soft Tide flakes or something like that.
Yeah, it is.
So, Amy, today we're in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, 28-45, which is the text in the Christian tradition for Transfiguration Sunday, which is so named because this text, especially in the other Gospels, has Jesus transfigured, transformed in some way. Interestingly, both Matthew and Mark actually use the term metamorpheo, like he's metamorphosed.
Wow. Like really, like now it's like transformer, not just like.
Exactly. But Luke is kind of the way with Luke a little bit. Like he tones down some of the dramatic stuff.
Yeah. And
so in Luke, it's just his face was different, heteron, and his clothes flashed gleaming white, which is the Tide commercial part. And so it's sort of Transfiguration Sunday, but a little less transfigure-y, but nonetheless kind of in the ballpark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before we get to that text, we've been going like verse by verse through Luke for a while. And this time we skipped a chapter and a half, which is like craziness.
Yeah.
So, yes, in the gospel text, that's quite a leap.
It's a lot in the gospel. I know we skip such big swaths of text in other sections, but in the gospel, we sometimes read really closely. So
we're like Moses, and then we're like David, and then we're like Isaiah.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, oh my gosh, we missed a chapter. Yeah. What do you think we need to know in the intervening chapter and a half to get us ready for today?
I don't know if there's like a specific plot point story that I would pull out from that section. We had the parables of the sower and the seed that I know we've talked about in other years in some of the other gospels. Mm-hmm. We had the story of this poor man who seems to live sort of like across the water and is possessed by demons and is like really like crazed, is like naked and crazy and like beating himself and all this. So we have like the healing of him, which is a very dramatic story.
The healing of the woman with the flow of blood. Isn't that in there?
Yes, the healing of the woman with the flow of blood, which we have also talked about numerous times in other years. And then let's see, the first part of this chapter, we find out a little bit on the side that John the Baptist has been beheaded.
Yeah, just like, oh yeah, by the way. Yeah.
Right. BTW, John the Baptist was beheaded. And there rises up this question of who is this Jesus guy?
Right.
And so, is he related in some way to John the Baptist? Is he related to Elijah? And so there's this question, Jesus finally asks his prophets, who do you think I am?
Mm.
And Peter says the Messiah, and he tells him to be quiet about that.
Right.
And maybe for the first time tells them that he's going to undergo suffering, that like this isn't going to end well.
Yeah.
And then just tells them like, but whoever wants to be on Team Jesus, take up your cross and come with me. And it's not going to be an easy road, but let's go.
I was talking about that with my students the other day, and they were like, the gospel is a positive message. And I was like, yes, but also, like, Jesus' selling point is take up your instrument of painful execution and let's go do this thing. Like, he's not selling real hard,
No.
He's not, the marketing campaign could have used a little spiffy nut, perhaps.
They could have talked to the Tide guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That chapter 8 really is kind of like a greatest hits of the Gospels in some ways. We skip it, I think, here because almost all of it we talked about last year.
Yeah.
In the Mark's version of these same stories. One of the texts that's really important, I think, for what happens later is at the beginning of chapter 9. Jesus sends out the 12, his apostles, and the text tells us he gave them power and authority over all demons to heal sicknesses.
Oh, yes. That is
and then they go out and they seem to do it, actually.
Yes. Yep.
Which is fairly amazing. And that's going to come back.
That's a big step.
In a little bit.
Yeah.
The transformation text, narrowly speaking, is in verses 28 to 36. The narrative lectionary has us going a little bit past that, which I think is really interesting, to 45. And so it pulls in a couple of other things that don't immediately seem related, but in that way that the narrative lectionary sometimes does, is trying to figure out how these things connect, I think can lead us in some interesting ways.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to it. We're in Luke 9, 28 to 45, and I am reading from the Common English Bible. About 8 days after Jesus said these things, he took Peter, John, and James and went up on a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes flashed white like a Tide commercial. His clothes flashed white like lightning. 2 men, Moses and Elijah, were talking with him. They were clothed with heavenly splendor and spoke about Jesus' departure, which he would achieve in Jerusalem. Peter and those with him were almost overcome by sleep, but they managed to stay awake and saw his glory as well as the 2 men with him. Amy, Luke tells us that this took place about 8 days after Jesus invited them to take up their crosses. In Matthew and Mark, it's actually 6 days, so Luke has changed it to 8 days.
Interesting.
I have no idea why 6 days or 8 days, but do you have anything?
That's a really fascinating detail. It struck me that it said about 8 days.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of like, about 8 days is a week. So it's a little strange to me that you would sort of have that level of specificity with also the note that it's approximate.
Yeah. It's about 23 and a half hours or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems to me important that the 8 is important to Luke.
Yes.
I guess. And I could think of 2 ways that it might be. One of them, just sort of immediately, the thing that happens on the 8th day in my mind is circumcision.
Oh.
Which is, like, what does that represent? This sort of moment of sort of fully entering the covenant.
Yeah.
It is also the moment where it seems, I think the reason it was on the 8th day was that they were afraid the baby was going to die before the 8th day. So it was like you sort of have reached a different level of like, okay, we're doing this. You're here and we're doing it.
Yeah.
I have one other thought about 8 days, but do you want to put in any thoughts in there?
I love that, Amy. I had not made it. I actually ended up at a similar place, but not so beautifully, which is just to say that 8 days is 1 day more than 7 days.
Yes.
which is a week. And so like the thing that he just said, because it's 8 days after he said these things, and the thing that he just said is about taking up your cross and following me. And so like one way of processing it is he waited 7 days to see if they would still be following him. He gave it time to sink in. And then on the 8th day, like, okay, that's a complete week. Like, let's go for it. But connecting it to circumcision, I really love, because it's like they are little babies in the faith and they just found out that it's going to be suffering. And so let's give it to the 8th day to see if they survive that announcement. You know what I mean? Like maybe they're going to fade away. Yeah. And they made it to the 8th day, so it seems like they're in it.
So it's a go.
So let's go. Yeah, I like that.
We're doing
What was your other thought about the 8 days?
My other thought, I cannot imagine that this is what's on Luke's mind, but it just sort of came to my mind, is I read this year a mystical Jewish teaching that actually is about why there being 8 candles on the Chanukiah, the menorah for Hanukkah. And it was that 7 is, in the Hebrew Bible and in a lot of Jewish tradition, sort of like the earthly number of completion. Like you have come to completion over the course of 7.
Yeah.
And so 8 gestures beyond completion in this world. Like the 8th is the gesture to, Olam Haba, the world to come, or something else. There's a reaching beyond what can be completed in this world.
I really love that, Amy. There is also in the Christian world, I don't know that we talk about it this way very often, but one way of thinking about Sunday is it's the 8th day of the week.
That's interesting.
Like Saturday is the 7th day, the day of completion. And so why does the Christian Sabbath move to Sunday? Yeah. Not because it's the first day of the week, but because it's the 8th day of the week. Something beyond the normal. If you try to do the math about that too much, like your head will start to spin.
Well, it's mystical,
but I like that idea.
Mystics don't have to do math.
So they go up on a mountain to pray.
Yeah.
Things happen on mountains a lot.
Yeah.
Does your head go to any particular mountain or mountain things?
Does my head go to any particular mountain? I mean, I guess the mountain that my head would go to would be Sinai, where, Moses goes up the mountain to have this extended period of like communication and kind of direct contact with God.
Amy, I was just looking at the Greek, and it's actually Tahoros, which means the mountain. So it's not just, I don't think Jesus is at Sinai, right? But he's just on a hillside, but the reference to the mountain, I think, gives it a little more weightiness, and maybe that Sinai reference. We're going to encounter Moses and Elijah both here. And they both, as you well know, had encounters with God on Sinai. So this may well be connecting this mountain in Galilee to that mountain in Sinai. One of the other things that Luke changes from the other 2 Gospels that tell this story is that this is a prayer event in Luke's Gospel. In the other Gospels, it just doesn't have that note about Jesus praying while he was praying. I don't know, other than to say, Luke also told the baptism this way, where it happened in a moment of prayer.
I will say that the idea, and I did not remember that the other Gospels didn't include the note that he went to the mountain to pray. And I did think it was a little strange. Like when I think about going to a mountaintop to pray, I'm thinking about really a pretty solitary, contemplative experience. Like you are intentionally leaving other people. And the fact that he brings Peter and John with him, like it made me ask myself, why is he bringing them?
Yeah.
And then even more so as it continues, it says, while he was praying, like they're not praying. What are they watching him pray? Like,
it seems like they're trying not to fall asleep. Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's like they're like interns that are like shadowing at a meeting, but they don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. So they're like,
here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
That notice about Jesus praying and the disciples trying not to fall asleep is a foreshadow. Like if you know the crucifixion story, it sounds like the Gethsemane incident where Jesus goes off to pray and the disciples almost fall asleep.
Yeah.
You can't catch that if this is your first, like if you're hearing the story for the first time, you wouldn't catch that. Although you might catch it when you get to Easter, you might catch it looking backwards.
You might remember. Yeah.
But maybe somehow this is trying to, I mean, these stories are obviously connected, the transformation, the crucifixion, resurrection. And so maybe this is one moment of it.
Yeah.
I also just like the idea that, Jesus, now the disciples know what he's up to a little bit. And he, things are getting a little dangerous. And I just like he likes his interns. You know what I mean? Like he likes a little companionship.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it could be he likes companionship, and it also is increasingly important that other people are witnessing the things that he is experiencing, because someone else is going to have to tell this story and carry it on.
In the other Gospels, it reads a little bit like Jesus took them up there so they would experience this, and so they would know.
Interesting. And
here it reads a little bit like he took them up to pray, and then this thing happened. And so, maybe he is, maybe he does know that this thing is about to happen, but maybe he's just praying like he does, and he has this experience. The language that we've been joking about a little bit, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes flashed white like lightning. What does that bring to mind for you?
I mean, I think the closest thing it brings to mind for me is when after Moses has been sort of close in the presence of God, the text says that his face radiated like so brightly that when he went back down the mountain, the people couldn't look at him because it was so so bright.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm thinking about.
That's where my head goes too. Something about the encounter with God makes you glowy. Yeah. We also see that when we encounter angels, or like when Ezekiel has his vision of God riding on the angelic chariot or whatever that thing is, there's a lot of gleaming going on in those stories too. Everything is like bright white and light. And so I think that's the idea of the earthly Jesus here sort of reflecting divine light or something like that. Like you can see through the little boundary between earth and heaven, or between Jesus's earthly human role and his divine Son of Man role, or something like that. We're in the realm of heaven when we start seeing things shine a lot.
What a thing to think about, like to have the kind of close encounter with the divine that your body changes in some way, to like that we are changed really concretely by that kind of proximity.
The two figures that show up to talk with Jesus are Moses and Elijah. They are also clothed in heavenly splendor, which I don't exactly know what that means, but I think it probably means they're also shiny.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Do you have thoughts about Moses and Elijah in particular appearing in this story?
Yeah, I do, Bobby. Thanks for asking.
I imagine that you might.
Well, this is a question that now that I'm such an expert, having read through the Gospels like once with you, that, I know we've talked about a lot, but so I want to say something that I think I probably have said in previous years, and then another thought that feels newer to me. I don't know, maybe I also said it but forgot it. Moses and Elijah are two really different prophetic leaders of the people of Israel in different periods of time. They function in really different ways. Their deaths are remarkable. Oh, well, I say deaths, but really what's remarkable about Elijah's is that it doesn't exactly say he died. It just says he rose up into heaven.
There is also a rabbinic tradition that I think you and I sort of stumbled upon last year, in which Moses also did not die. It's not in the biblical text that way. But like nobody knows where he's buried or something like that.
No one knows where exactly he's buried.
And so the rabbinic tradition offers the possibility that he actually didn't die. I don't know that that's in mind here, but it's kind of an interesting idea.
The other thing that I'm thinking about this year, and is helping me think a little bit about the range of sort of, I don't know, I'll say personality traits, for lack of a better category, that we see embodied in Jesus during his years on earth. Moses is known as like the most humble. Like he doesn't want to be the leader. He is always, he is very much the sort of servant of God, but also servant of the people. Like he's trying, but he is very different from Elijah, who really like, he grabs the mic, He is like, no, this is what we're going to do. And, when we've read Elijah texts together, I've sometimes raised the question, like, did God tell him to do that? Or is God just kind of catching up with what kind of nonsense Elijah just got himself into?
You raised that issue this fall when we read that first Elijah text in 1 Kings 17, where he declares the drought. And you were like, Did Elijah just go out on his own and God backed him up? How did this work exactly here? But I just think it's interesting to think about the range of the kinds of things that the leaders of Israel have done and have had to do as part of their leadership that come up in different ways for, in Jesus's leadership. So it just kind of lays out the continuum for us. I like that a lot. And so Jesus is yet still a third figure who is among the most important figures of the tradition in a Christian lens. And so he's sort of getting some coaching or something, like a little mentorship. Yeah,
right. But like here, different, like if your coach isn't really like aligned with your personality, it's sort of like, well, I mean, fine, that's how you would handle it, but I can't do that. So now he's got like two
that's still a third
very different
I love that.
approaches.
The other resonance, which you sort of got us close to, but it maybe is shaded slightly differently, is that Moses is not only a prophet, but also the giver of the law, the Torah from Sinai. And so one way that this has sometimes been read is that Jesus being there with Moses and Elijah is sort of a representation of Jesus being the like fulfillment of both the Torah tradition and also the prophetic tradition. He is a prophet like the prophets and a lawgiver like the lawgivers. We've had a lot of references to Elijah actually in Luke's gospel so far. Jesus told a story about Elijah in his Nazareth sermon back in chapter 4. Jesus resurrected the son of a widow, like in back in chapter 7, like Elijah did in 1 Kings 17. And so we've sort of seen Jesus coming along as like a recognizable Elijah figure. And then here we pull Moses maybe into that as well.
One other thought, if I can throw it in there, Bobby, is that Moses in particular, I don't know how to quite connect this with Elijah, but Moses, the moment when Moses can't go with his people into this next phase of what their life is going to be, this next part of like the covenant. And that's a really excruciating thing to read in the biblical text. But like Moses has to lead them up to it and then remind them like, guys, you're going to have to remember this because I'm not going to be here. And that I feel some resonance of that in Jesus's awareness that his departure, like it, it's a lovely euphemism for what's about to happen, but the fact that he is preparing now for his departure and preparing his people for his departure.
I love that. And it also, when we get to the story after this story, that's a strong connection. You were mentioning that word departure, which in the Greek is literally the word is exodus.
Wow.
And so it's pretty clearly referencing the Exodus narrative. The language in the CEB is his departure, which he would achieve. The Greek could be read as like, it's his exodus, which will be fulfilled, or maybe it could be which he will achieve. So I've been trying to sort of think about, if you thought about what Jesus is about to undergo in Jerusalem, which is, of course, his crucifixion, death, and resurrection, thinking about that as an exodus is really kind of intriguing. Does that take your head anywhere?
Oh, man, that's a complicated question.
It is a very complicated question. I just threw it at you. Pew!
Yeah.
Pew, pew.
The things that come to my mind with Exodus are which it doesn't have to mean. It's just, I guess, what it means in the biblical story is this is an escape from human inflicted suffering.
Right.
And this sense that we are enslaved to another human or to humans.
Yeah.
So, one way that happens in the biblical story is they move out of slavery in Egypt and into being servants of God. But there's still, we all still, we are in bodies on earth in relationship to each other. And so we're always in this, always in this sort of in-between state. But I guess one could try to think about Jesus's, either about his own death as moving through his suffering and, and moving through that and out of it, or as sort of, again, trying to move the people one step closer, like one step further away from this like human system and human inflicted suffering and toward an orientation toward God.
My head goes somewhere similar, which is, if you take the parallel that you're developing of like the Hebrew scripture Exodus is an escape from the reign of Pharaoh through the waters of the Red Sea into the promised land where you live under God's kind of supervision. Then if you map that here, then I think you get to something like human beings in this present moment are under the hand of death, wielded by the Roman Empire, but the empires of the world. And so Jesus' death and resurrection is like the passing through the waters of the sea. And it brings you through to another mode of existence. I don't want to think of it as like a different physical location for reasons, but it brings you to sort of into the reign of God. It makes possible another kind of life that is not beholden unto the power of death.
That's so interesting. So it's talking about Jesus's, proverbial exodus, Jesus's exodus, but really it's that, yes, Jesus's exodus departure is what allows for, what sort of opens the doorway for this exodus of the people from the state they are in to a different
I think so.
state.
That's the way I want to read it anyway.
That's
so you've
really
got
nice.
You've got Moses standing there and we're talking about an exodus, and his exodus was not simply for him, but also on behalf of the people. And so the connection is not immediately made, but it's in the air there, I think.
Hi, y'all. It's Amy, one of your friendly co-hosts, and I want to tell you why Bible Worm is important to me. There's a Jewish tradition that Torah study is best done with a partner, a Hevruta, we call it, someone who pushes you beyond where you would have gone on your own. Bobby was essentially my Hevruta for 10 years of grad school, and I've never found a thought partner quite like him. So when he asked if I wanted to read texts together, there was no real thought process before I said yes. The decision to record this podcast the way we do was risky. We don't have a script. We don't pre-talk things. We are thinking together live. And it is my hope that precisely because of that, you feel invited to think along with us. Because everyone needs a Hevruta. And if you don't have one, I hope you will let us be yours. If this way of being in relationship to biblical text speaks to you the way it speaks to me, I hope you'll help sustain us through Patreon at whatever level makes sense for you. There are some nice perks if you need them. Liturgies, videos, monthly discussion groups. This year I've added some recordings of the chanting of these texts that you might hear in a synagogue. Or you can just support us to show your appreciation and help us know that this work matters. Thanks for listening and for supporting us however you can.
Let's see what happens next. I am in verse 33. As the two men were about to leave Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it's good that we're here. We should construct 3 shrines, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he didn't know what he was saying. Peter was still speaking when a cloud overshadowed them. As they entered the cloud, they were overcome with awe. Then a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him." Even as the voice spoke, Jesus was found alone. They were speechless and at the time told no one what they had seen. I have talked so many times about what on earth Peter is thinking right here. Do you have any way of getting in Peter's head about what he's trying to accomplish? Saying, let's construct 3 shrines.
Is the word for shrines here, like, are these little shelters, like little sukkot? My translation says dwellings or tents.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. The Greek word is skene, which means a tabernacle, a tent, a shelter, or a dwelling. And so I don't know why. Maybe tabernacle is where they're getting shrine.
Tabernacle. Mm-hmm.
But if you follow it in the direction, so I think it has a stronger sense of like a tent or a shelter or a dwelling, like a temporary structure. If you follow that direction, where do you go?
I mean, I think they have no earthly idea what's happening. And they are trying to find a way to be hospitable.
Yeah.
That's the best I can think of.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking sort of, if I think in terms of like a sukkah, a like temporary dwelling place in the desert, one of the main purposes of those is shelter from the punishing sun. Yeah. They're up on a mountain, so presumably the sun is pretty punishing. Although it doesn't say that it's nighttime, but they're sleepy, so maybe it's
maybe so. I don't know what I don't actually know. I've never really. I don't even know what I imagine. I'm sleepy a lot. So
So, I know that you in the past have been a little more unhappy about their like suggestion here. I feel like it's misguided, but is, I think, well intentioned. I
think you're right. I can be a little grumpy about them sometimes. I mean, Luke clearly says he didn't know what he was talking about, and he didn't know what he was saying, is how the CEB has it. But I like your way of reading it as, I mean, when Moses and Elijah and Jesus are standing in front of you, you don't just want to like not even acknowledge or like offer them a cup of tea or, something.
Like something.
And so I think that I like that way of reading it, as this is Peter's effort to be hospitable. It is not what is wanted or needed in this situation. But how would he know? Like, this is not something he has a point of reference for.
Indeed not.
I mean, I don't know what ideally he would have done. Just have done nothing? Or was there something else that he should have done? Like, I don't know how you get there. But clearly what he did was not what he was supposed to do. He didn't know what he was saying.
I also am wondering this year in particular, Bobby, about their sleepiness and like almost like a quasi dream state. Like this is such an incredibly bizarre thing that they're seeing. Like the whole thing just reads to me like I had this crazy dream.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know that goes anywhere in particular, but one thing that strikes me is after they make that offer, no one answers them. Like no one says yes or no to them. They just sort of continue, like other weird things happen. Like it's just a series of really weird things. And I don't know, it has me wondering about that.
I like that. This is probably a strange connection, but in the Gnostic texts, which are these early Christian mystical texts that have a whole, like, they're heresies, but they use, according to the church, they use the language of sleepiness to talk about like the inability to comprehend what is really happening. Like human beings are by our nature sleepy. And if we could wake up, we could see that there's a whole spiritual world that is going along behind our reality, but we are not alert in that way. And so if you read this that way, then it gets close to what you're saying, I think, where their physical sleepiness is like a metaphor for their spiritual sleepiness. They manage to sort of see through the sleepy haze just a little bit and glimpse the reality. But then maybe they don't trust what they've seen, or maybe they think it was a fever dream, or they ate some bad cheese last night or whatever. Yeah. And so they just have this glimmer, but there's nowhere There's nowhere for it to go.
They don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
While that is happening, a cloud comes and overshadows them and makes them overcome with awe.
Mm.
The word there in Greek is phobeomai, which is related to the word phobos, like phobia.
Mm.
In Greek, it can have, like what you're saying, it can have the sense of fear, or it can have the sense of respect and worship. It's a little bit like the notion of fear in Hebrew.
In Hebrew, yeah, that there's that you are in the presence of something really big.
Right.
Yeah.
My translation goes with awe, like that's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yours goes with
Mine goes with terror.
terrified.
They were terrified.
I don't know what to say about that other than awe and terror are often closely aligned.
They really are. They're just like on opposite sides of a thin line. Yeah.
When a cloud shows up and a voice starts speaking from it, I mean, clearly this is God, right? Because the cloud says, "This is my son." And we've heard that before, and that was at the baptism. Does God and clouds, does that strike anything for you?
I mean, yes. In Exodus, God's presence is indicated by the presence of a cloud that comes over the tabernacle when God is present in the tabernacle, and also leads the Israelite people through the desert during the day, and then at night conveniently turns into fire. And I will say, Bobby, this past summer, I was in Santa Fe for a little while, just on vacation, and I'm very rarely out in the desert, but I was out in the desert, and it was the first time, I think, that I really had this embodied understanding, different level of understanding of what it feels like for there to be a cloud in the desert. It's like a miracle to get out, to have this sheltering presence that blocks the punishing sun for a moment, and you want to be as close to it as you can, and you can see it all the way across the horizon. And it strikes me here that they were just saying, let's build these sukkot, let's build these shelters that are really their main purpose is to shelter from the sun. We don't need that because God's coming in a cloud, and it's going to take care of it.
So the cloud offers some protection. Like it envelops them in such a way that you don't need a human structure to protect them, because there's a divine structure to protect them. That's really beautiful.
But it's also scary because you can't see very well. All the ways that you would try to sort of discern what's happening and be able to control control things a little bit. If your vision is fuzzed up and you have no visibility into things, then you're kind of just at the whim of the greater power. And so there's that fear and awe.
Amy, the voice that speaks from the cloud says, "This is my son, my chosen one, listen to him," which echoes, I think, back to the baptism when the voice said to Jesus, "You are my son,
yes,
my beloved one, in you I find happiness," or something like that. Do you have thoughts about either that connection or what the voice is saying here? It lands on an imperative, right? Listen to him.
Yeah.
And it's not spoken to Jesus, it's spoken to the disciples.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, in the baptism scene, it's like the heavens open and this happens.
Oh, yeah.
And so I sort of imagine clouds parting or something like that. And here the cloud is coming down. I don't quite know what to do with that, other than both of those are really attention-getting moments. I had thought of the parallel to the baptism, but what's coming to my mind right now, Bobby, is that the very presence of the cloud that is both sheltering them from the sun, but is also fuzzying whatever vision they themselves can have, and the imperative, listen to him. When your kids were little, did you ever... I think we've talked about this, actually. Did you ever, they get all kinds of distracted and they're not looking at you, and so they're not paying attention to you, but sometimes you have to almost block off other senses are confusing them, and it's they need blinders. I feel like The guys get blinders.
The cloud shuts down everything.
And so they're being told, don't believe your eyes. Listen to what Jesus is telling you.
Yeah.
Because really what's going to happen is quite unbelievable, just like everything that has happened on this mountain.
Yeah.
That doesn't really connect it to the baptism, though. How are you thinking about that connection?
I don't know if I've got a well-developed thought about it. At the baptism is sort of confirmation of who Jesus is. Like he seems to have known because he's already had that experience in the temple and all of those things. But it's sort of like the beginning of his, like, now here we really go. And this is sort of at a similar moment for the apostles as they're transitioning to being the ones who are going to carry on this mission. And so that announcement of Jesus' identity to them with the instruction to listen. So like, you're not my son, you're not the Messiah, but you're with him. And so listen to what he says, trust what he says. That might be a moment of shift for them into some other kind of way of being.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amy, in the other Gospels, Jesus tells them on the way down the mountain, don't tell anybody. Here, it just says they were speechless and they didn't tell anybody what they saw. And it sounds different to me. Like, Mark's version sounds like they want to tell somebody. And Jesus is like, no.
Yeah.
This version sounds like they could have told somebody, but they chose not to.
Yeah, this one sounds like the end of, I think, Matthew, where the people who see that Jesus is not in his tomb just don't tell anybody.
Oh, yeah, in Mark's gospel. Yeah, the women, they said nothing to anyone for they were very afraid.
Yeah.
It's a nice connection. It does sound that way.
I mean, it fits in my mind with this whole thing sort of feeling a little bit like a dream sequence. Like what they're seeing doesn't make sense.
Yes.
It's very, it's disjointed. It has no, I was reading again, some like Jewish mystical texts yesterday, which I know they don't have in mind here, but the idea of this, there are religious experiences whose content is not logical. Like it's very hard to translate into language because the language often just sounds a little silly.
Right.
Which is why we keep joking about this being a Tide commercial. Like it's really difficult to impart the actual truth of the thing using words. So I don't know if it was good or bad, or if Luke has an opinion about it being good or bad that they didn't tell people.
Yeah.
But I can understand, like, even if they took it quite seriously, just like not recognizing that you can't convey the reality of that in words.
I like that a lot. Yeah, you've had a transformative experience that you don't know how to talk about. And so rather than trying to put it into words that can't capture the experience, or people thinking that you're off your rocker or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. They would think they were off their rocker.
Just keep it to yourself.
I wonder if they talked to each other about it, like stayed up at night. What was that?
Had like a little group me going on.
I mean, I would want to talk to the other person who'd been there.
All right, Amy. So the next story that the narrative lectionary gives us is in 37 to 43. And it's also in the other Gospels, but it's not given to us in the narrative lectionary in the other Gospels. So it connects this, this one connects that story to the Transfiguration in a really interesting way that maybe transforms the Transfiguration.
Wow.
See what I did there?
I did. Yeah.
I was so much more impressed with myself than you were impressed with me.
That was really good. Yeah. I'm really impressed.
You were overwhelmed and you didn't know how to put it into words.
I was overwhelmed.
So you said nothing to anyone.
I had a transformational experience, Bobby. I'm just in fear and awe.
The next day, when Jesus, Peter, John, and James had come down from the mountain, a large crowd met Jesus. A man from the crowd shouted, "Teacher, I beg you to take a look at my son, my only child. Look, a spirit seizes him, and without any warning, he screams. It shakes him and causes him to foam at the mouth. It tortures him and rarely leaves him alone. I begged your disciples to throw it out, but they couldn't." Jesus answered, "You faithless and crooked generation, how long will I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon threw him down and shook him violently. Jesus spoke harshly to the unclean spirit, healed the child, and gave him back to his father. Everyone was overwhelmed by God's greatness. Amy, we get a really vivid account of this demon possession here. Like, it lingers over the describing the effects of the spirit for a couple of verses. Like, I mean, I think what we're describing, like, you and I would probably call it some kind of a seizure.
Yeah.
But this is not how the ancient world would have thought about such things. Can you get us into the head of how we might make sense of how to talk about demon possession in a modern rationalist context?
What I can say, where I can start us, and then maybe you can pick us up from there, is it is terrifying to watch someone have a seizure. They clearly are not control. They are not in control of their body anymore, but they were a moment ago.
Right.
They appear to be suffering tremendously. I don't actually think, for someone who doesn't have, I mean, I think it is genuinely scary. So to assume that some other force has taken over that person's body and ascribe that to the spiritual world actually does not sound crazy to me. They didn't have brain scans and
Absolutely.
I think the abruptness of the way that that seizures come on, and like the totality of them, I do think that is frightening in a different kind of way than some other maladies that a body might suffer.
You know, one way of getting at this as a modern person is to say, well, now we know what this is, and so this story doesn't make any sense anymore, or something like that. The way that I want to get at it is that this story is metaphor. Like, I mean, it's describing something real, but the way that it's thinking about demon possession is about unclean spirits that inhabit the bodies of people that you love. And that we still can think about unclean spirits that inhabit the bodies of ones that we love, maybe even inhabit our own bodies. And maybe it doesn't express itself in this sort of neurological response. But when you think about, you know, the great sins or the great spirits of racism and sexism and heterosexism and all of these other, like, imperialism and capitalism, maybe we would say, we are often inhabited by things that twist us from what we were ideally created to be, and that we don't know what to do about. Now, I don't know, like, this is me as a rationalist, Presbyterian, biblical scholar with no experience of literal demon possession, trying to find a way to read this text. Do you have thoughts about that way of reading it?
You know, it's interesting to me that you raised this question here, but it didn't come up with the other healings.
Yeah,
I think I see this as in line. This is, I mean, I guess it's true in this case. They specifically say it's a demon. Do they say it specifically? It's some unclean spirit. It's an unclean spirit, and maybe before it's not.
But you're right, with that centurion text. In that text where the centurion's slave is ill, the way Jesus seems to heal him is because he has authority in the spiritual realm. And so he, even though we don't see it narrated, he seems to rebuke a spirit. Yeah. So you're right. The other healings have been similar, but I'm only bugged by it here.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know if I'm just sort of, okay, just to be clear, I believe in science and medicine.
Yeah.
And I am aware that the things that I believe about science and medicine, I believe because somebody told me. It's not because I personally know. I haven't done the research and watched all these, things. And I think there is still a lot of mystery. It seems like we're always overturning our own scientific. Yeah. Like part of the scientific sort of mindset is willingness to overturn previous scientific conclusions to come to something else. So I think if we're talking about Jesus as a force in the world that sort of is like I don't know, almost of one piece with all of that mystery and is able to like call forth all these mysterious things in the world. I still think that still feels real to me, sort of alongside what we know and what we don't know medically. I don't know. It just doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it totally bothers me. But when I read Ed Hendricks, I have a number of students who are from, the African continent and places like that. And in my community at Mercy Church and now at Canvas Community, folks from more charismatic traditions, and they're like, yeah, this totally happens. Like what's your problem, Williamson, that you hesitate about demon possession? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm a Presbyterian rationalist and like, that's what it is. But for a lot of folks that I know, it's just a very real story of the way the world is. I don't know if at the end of the day, if it super matters. What's interesting in this story is I took it to your disciples and they couldn't do it, which brings us back to that beginning of this chapter that I noted at the beginning where Jesus gave them authority in 9:1 to cast out demons. And now they seemingly haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
Jesus says, you faithless and crooked generation, how long do I have to be with you?
Yeah, he's real annoyed.
How do you who's he talking to?
That is the question to me. Like, if what has allowed these other healings to happen is in part faith, and up to this point, it has mostly been faith in the person who seeks healing in Jesus's capacity to heal them.
Yeah.
Is the problem that this parent didn't really believe the disciples could do it? Or is that the disciples didn't believe they could do it?
Yeah.
Or some combination of those things? I don't know.
I think both of those readings are possible. Today, I'm reading this as the disciples are the faithless ones.
Yeah.
And what their lack of faith is they don't believe they can actually do what Jesus has given them the authority to do.
Yes.
You could also then connect that as you were doing to the people don't believe the disciples can do it either.
But he does go out of his way to say, I asked the disciples to do this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Although, you can go through the motions, I suppose.
Jesus is, what he says is, how long will I be with you and have to put up with you? Which is pretty rough. Like he's waiting for the Exodus. Yeah. You helped me a lot earlier today when you were talking about the urgency Moses must have felt when the people were getting ready to go into the land and Moses knew he couldn't go.
Yeah.
And here Jesus knows. They're on their way to Jerusalem. He knows the time is short. Yes. We're in chapter 9, y'all, and this thing's only 24 chapters long. Where it's getting there. And so his frustration, I think I like that way of reading it, as his frustration is about, he's anxious because he needs his disciples, his apostles, to be able to carry this out in the world. And when they have the opportunity here, they can't do it. Yeah. And so he's like, come on, y'all. Right.
You have got yes, I'm not going to be here. You have to be able to do this without me. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, I'm like, it seems so fast that he gives them I don't know how much time has really passed, but it's inside of one chapter. But on the other hand, Jesus's mission is not that long.
Yeah.
If you try to compare it to parenting, where first you do everything for your kids and then you're trying to teach your kids to do things for themselves because that's really the goal. You can't do it,
Right.
You're not always going to be there to do it. We have a lot longer.
Yeah, that's right. In John's gospel, in the ministry of Jesus, John mentions 3 Passovers, which means that Jesus' ministry would have lasted somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
Yeah.
In the synoptic gospels like Luke, once Jesus begins his adult ministry, it only mentions Passover once at the time of his crucifixion. And I was reading an introduction in one of my classes, Mark Allen Powell's introduction. He said Jesus' ministry might have lasted a matter of weeks. And I was I never put it to myself that way. Even when you're it's a year, it's still not long. And so, there's urgency, and it's getting yet still more urgent as Jerusalem draws closer.
Yes.
I just want to say, as a dad, I like this story because here's a dad with his little child, and I guess this is his son. And when I think of these children healing stories, it's often the mom, which I like. I mean, I think is important too, but I like that here's a father and his boy child, and they're coming. Like, I don't know. It's just like a personal note about fatherhood or something.
No, I think that is important to raise up. Like, we make a point to raise up when women are doing other kinds of things in the biblical text. And I think it's important to raise up here that, the parent figure is a father with his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's probably a lot more one could say about this healing text. Are there other things you want to make sure we see there?
I don't know how much there is to discuss about this, but maybe just sort of a note or a question. If Jesus' frustration is that, like, his disciples have got to believe that they can do this themselves, his response to just do it,
right?
I totally understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand. And also, it feels very human. Like, that is a human, that is a frustrated human kind of response.
Instead of walking them through.
Right. Instead of being like, no, you can do it. And you have to believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus doesn't, he's not having that today.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we've got just a little bit more text. This seems to pick up right on the heels of that. I mean, 43b, the second half of 43. While everyone was marveling at everything he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples, "Take these words to heart. The human one is about to be delivered into human hands." They didn't understand this statement. Its meaning was hidden from them, so they couldn't grasp it, and they were afraid to ask him about it. So here Jesus seems to be picking up what we were saying, or I mean, I guess we were picking up what Jesus was saying, but he's not taking his cues from Bible Worm, it would seem. That, hey, y'all, the time is short.
Yeah.
This translation that I'm reading, the CEB, renders what is often translated the Son of Man as the human one, and which results in the human one is going to be delivered into human hands, which sounds different than the Son of Man is going to be delivered into human hands. Just the humanness of it.
Yeah, no, it really draws that connection. It draws out the human part.
Yeah.
Jesus' human part.
I am one of you, and you are going to do me in. The disciples, it says they can't understand, and so they just don't talk. They don't want to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look a little
just
sad.
Yell at them.
He did. You faithless generation.
I mean, I think we've talked about this before in the other Gospels. I think there's just a point at which it's like you can't really explain it.
Yeah.
In a way that people are going to understand.
Yeah. It is interesting. You were talking earlier about how maybe the disciples don't talk coming down the mountain because no one's going to understand what they're talking about.
Yes.
And in a sense, that's what Jesus is going through this whole time. Like, he's trying to explain something that nobody gets. And he gets frustrated about it. And I mean, it turns out, I think, that you can't understand it until you have witnessed the resurrection.
Yes.
And then maybe you could get it.
And maybe in retrospect, yeah.
And so these characters in the story, like, there's really no way they were ever going to get it.
No, I think.
And I think the idea is maybe a believing reader of this text, having believed the resurrection, should be able to get it. But these guys never really had a shot, even though Jesus seems to really want them to figure it out.
Yeah. All
right, Amy. So this text has taken us on kind of a journey up the mountain and back down into a healing, and now we're facing toward Jerusalem. Are there things about this text when you read it that are particularly connecting with you about life today?
One thing that like, it's sort of a detail. It's not like an overarching theme, but that I keep sort of coming back to in these two stories is this question of, what do we pay attention to? What do the people in the story need to pay attention to? And how does the story try to help them pay attention to the thing that we need them to pay attention to?
Yeah.
first, like the fact that Jesus goes up the mountain. Yes, of course, connections to Sinai, but also what does it mean to go up the mountain and leave sort of the world behind you for a little while? Like, how does that direct your attention? How does a cloud descending direct your attention? And then this line, it was a little different in your translation at the beginning of this story with the man who's seeking healing for his son. But in my translation, it says, I beg of you to look at my son. Which just, I don't know, I was very moved by that. Just look at him. Mm-hmm. And then at the end it says they can't perceive, this is hidden from them. They can't see it. I think I really am thinking about the, I don't know, the state of our world now where a gazillion things are trying to get our attention at every single moment. Yeah. And we have to be pretty intentional and careful and try to guide our attention to the things that we think are actually worthy of it, because it is powerful to look at someone. Yeah. Or to listen to someone, but sometimes there are so many other inputs that you just can't fully do it. Yeah. So that is what this text has me thinking about today. What are the ways I can put my attention where it needs to be?
Yeah, what do we need to be looking at among all the things that are begging for our attention?
Yeah. What are you thinking, Bobby?
My reading goes in kind of a similar direction, maybe. Like it's related anyway. What I'm thinking about is, back in the beginning of chapter 9, Jesus gave the apostles the ability to cast out demons. And part of the reason I think that I was pushing hard on that, like, what do we mean by demons, is because I do not actually have confidence in my ability to cast out neurological disorders.
Okay, that's fair.
But if I think about demons more metaphorically, then I do maybe have power, but I get overwhelmed by the magnitude. Yes. Like they seem like the description of this. The effects of the Spirit here are really huge and like overwhelming, and the agony of the person. And, when I think about the kinds of things that are possessing our world today and the amount of agony, as you're saying, that there is that I could look at, I get overwhelmed and I think there's nothing I can do about that. And here in this text, Jesus has given them the power to do this. Then he's gone up on the mountain with them, where in this kind of sleepy haze, they have understood who Jesus is, but maybe not fully. Mm-hmm. And then they've come back down the mountain, and now here is their moment, and they can't do it. And so, I'm a little, like a minute ago, I was saying, like, of course they can't do it. Like, they haven't experienced the resurrection. But like, believers today have also not experienced the resurrection directly. We've sort of maybe seen it through a sleepy haze like the disciples. Yeah. So what I take from this text, I mean, on the one hand, it's a little bit of a chastisement, right? It's a little bit of like, why can't you do the thing that I told you that you can do? But the flip side of that coin is you can actually do the thing if you just believe that you can do it. So the reason Jesus is frustrated is not because they can't do it. It's because they can do it.
That's right.
But they don't know they can do it, or they're not acting like they can do it.
Right.
And so where this text is kind of leaving me is, as a follower of Jesus, like our belief is that Jesus has sort of bestowed upon us the power to cast out the metaphorical demons of the world. And we don't have time to get overwhelmed by it, or to be so sleepy in our encounter with the gospel that it stays hazy for us and we don't carry out our mission. But like, this is it. I mean, this is the time, right? That so many things we can look at and so many things that we can be engaged with, and to be overwhelmed and say, I can't do that. Like that's kind of where I want to end up, is like, I don't know, I can't handle all of this. But this text seems to be saying, no, like, maybe you can't cast out all the demons in all the world, but like, if there's a little boy in front of you who needs help, we can do that, and then we can do the next thing, and we can do the next thing. So I think we have a lot of power
Yes.
maybe as followers of Jesus that we don't actually believe we have.
Yes.
And if we believed it, maybe we could do something.
Oh, I love that, Bobby. I love it. And it has me thinking of this question. I don't know if we've talked about it, but to ask in those moments of feeling like I can't do it, I can't do this thing, what if you are exactly what's needed?
Yeah.
Whatever your power is
Yeah.
brought fully to this moment. What if you
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Amy, next time we're going to be in a special episode for Ash Wednesday in Luke 9:51 to 62. And then our next regular episode is Luke 10:25 to 42, which is the parable of the Good Samaritan and some other things.
And other things.
And etc.
Sundry other items.
Yes.
Great. Well, I look forward to it, Bobby.
I enjoyed this conversation, Amy. I'll see you next time.
Sounds good. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Bible Worm. If you've enjoyed this free podcast, we hope you'll help us keep it going by joining our Patreon for as little as $4 per month. You can also sign up for other goodies like early access, video lectures, weekly liturgies, and more. Visit patreon.com/BibleWormPodcast for details.
Bible Worm is produced and edited by Bobby Williamson. Our theme song is sung by Colin Bagby, and our theme music is The World at Large by Dano Songs. Many thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping make this podcast possible.
Join us next time for our special Ash Wednesday episode as we read Luke 9:51 to 62, and then for our next regular episode where we discuss the parable of the Good Samaritan and the story of Mary and Martha in Luke 10:25 to 42. Until then, keep on digging.